I'm Chef Diana, and this is my weekly cook-along. Welcome! So happy that you have tuned into Lancaster Local Provisions, where the farmers market meets online grocery. So today, in this week's box, we have the Robin's Coconut Squash. It's one of my favorite squashes. You don't eat the skin, but I love it roasted. So I just want to show you how to prep a squash to be whole roasted. What you do, I've already washed it. Now I'm just going to cut it in half. Now if you're having a hard time with a thick-skinned squash, pop it in the microwave for like 30 seconds and it will soften the skin enough for you to cut it. This side was where it was sitting on the ground and it was growing. Now if you hit the stem, you can't get through it. All you have to do is sort of split it, and one side will just there we go. Perfect. Alright, so there's inside of the squash. Now you don't want to eat all that yummy seeds in your roasted squash, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scoop out with a spoon the filling. Now you can separate the squash seeds out if you'd like. If you just pop this whole thing in water overnight, then the next day it'll be much easier for you to get the seeds away from the flesh of the squash. So I've emptied this out. All I'm going to do is put a light glug of olive oil, a little salt and pepper, and then I'm going to roast it cut side down so the inside steams and it cooks evenly. Let me show you what they look like when they come out of the oven. So these I roasted at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. They're nice and soft. I can easily pierce them with a knife, and they're beautifully cooked on the inside. Now you can eat them just like this. I love to fill them with grains. I love putting like a wild rice mushroom risotto in there, or like a farro dish. They're delicious and really cute. And I just think it's such an opportunity to have like a fun vegetable vehicle for some of your other dishes. You can also roast your radishes. We have some really beautiful, I think they were called rose radishes this week. You can roast them at 400 for about 15 minutes. But in the meantime, I'm going to get to my hash. So I love breakfast, and the sweet potatoes you've been getting are just massive. I mean, they look like those mangrove things in Harry Potter, like it's the size of my head. Oh my goodness. So I'm just going to use maybe like a third of this. So I'm going to just actually peel the part that I want. So I would say about a cup of sweet potato to start. And I'm making a sweet potato and apple hash for one person. So double or triple it as needed. This is a recipe I cook at least once a week for breakfast. I just think it's a great way to use up your root vegetables, use up your potatoes. I love apples. I love breakfast. What more could you want? So you can see there's a little imperfection. All I'm going to do is just cut that part off. And then I'm going to do a nice sort of small dice, like a centimeter size cube on this. Now I have a little bit of my ghee, and that's just clarified butter. It actually has a higher smoke point than regular butter. It's very good for you, good for your joints. We carry it in the marketplace if you want some. And I'm going to cook the potatoes first for like 2 minutes. Now I think the key to a really good hash is cooking the different components when they're supposed to be cooked. So a hash, you don't just throw everything in and have it cook. You really want it to cook properly. So the sweet potatoes are going to take the longest, so they go in the pan first. So I have this about medium-high heat. Excuse me, medium-high heat. And I'm just going to move them around the pan until they start to get a little bit of color and sort of toss them up. I'm going to put a dash of salt and a dash of pepper. Now, I also love bacon, so the next component, I'm going to add bacon in. Now, you don't have to use bacon if you don't want to. It's your personal choice. You can add in sausage. You don't have to add any meat in, but I'm going to do 2 pieces of bacon for myself. Now, if you don't want soggy bacon, this is when you want to put it in. Those are delicious country bacon from Rooster Street. Their bacon is just so delicious. And every time I go to pick up our order, it just smells like smoky deliciousness in there. So I'm just going to cut these into what I would call a lardon, if you want to be fancy, but they're just strips. So my sweet potatoes are starting to get a little bit of color. And now I'm going to put in my pieces of bacon. We also have onion. You can substitute shallot in for that. You can use any type of potato. You can use a white potato. You can use a purple potato. We have these great purple sweet potatoes in the marketplace. You can even use like a butternut squash. You can use your coconut squash. In the coconut squash, that would make a really nice, like, yummy breakfast bowl. Like, you could cook it for maybe 15 minutes, flip it over, and then put an egg in there, and it almost looks like poach in there. Oh, that would be delicious. We'll make a recipe for that soon. I always forget about, I love breakfast, but I always sort of forget about breakfast when I'm doing our recipes. So just let me know if you want more breakfast recipes. We also have a great baked apple and oatmeal recipe this week as well, where you basically peel your apple, cut it in half, scoop out the center, put a little bit of sugar and our autumn harvest blend, or just cinnamon seasoning, bake that for 15 minutes, and then you make your oatmeal mixture, and then put that around the apples, so like the baked apples are like in the oatmeal. It's delicious. Sort of like a Dutch apple dumpling, but with oatmeal. Alright, so things are starting to cook up. This is looking really good. I'm going to now slice my onion. So there's only one of these, so I only want maybe about a half a cup of onion. And you can just put the other half in your fridge, or maybe you want to make breakfast for somebody else in your life. Use the whole onion. And again, this is just a really like basic outline of how a breakfast hash can go, but you don't have to follow it to a T. Now I also am going to put a fried egg on top, so I'm just going to heat up my smaller nonstick pan. I always find a nonstick pan to be the easiest way to cook a fried egg. I don't mess with doing it on my cast iron. So again, I want to try to keep my pieces sort of the same size when I'm cutting everything. And my bacon is starting to crisp up a little bit, so it's time for my onion to go in. Now, you can flavor your hash in a couple different ways. I mean, I love, a basic rosemary, thyme sort of thing, seasoning. Any sort of fresh herb is delicious, but today I'm going to put a little bit of my sweet curry powder from Calcuts, just because that's sort of the vibe I want to go with today. So just a little bit, doesn't have to be too much. And then it will get this really nice warm flavor to it. And nothing like starting the day with a little spice. Okay, so I'm letting everything sort of cook. I don't want a big pile in the middle of my pan. I want everything to have space to sort of do its thing. Now for the apple, I'm going to leave the skin on. You can use any type of apple. This is our Crimson Crisp. It's related to Honey Crisp, but it's a little less juicy and a very good apple for snacking and for baking. So again, I'm just going to make nice bite-sized pieces. And I'm going to go grab my egg. So excuse me for a second. Alright, so I have one of my organic farm fresh eggs. And I usually drop the egg when I put the apple in at the end, or sort of at the same time. So I'm going to take a little bit of ghee. It's very important to have oil in your pan when you're making a fried egg. I'm going to let that melt, and then I'm just going to crack my egg right into the pan. Very exciting. And then I'm going to put my apple in, because the apple is the softest thing that's going into this hash. That's why it's going in at the very end. This might seem like a lot of food, but this really powers me until like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So when I have a big day ahead of me, this is what I'm making. And bacon loves pepper, so I'm going to add a little bit more pepper in here and just let this sort of become nice and unctuous. So my oil is melted. I'm going to just crack my egg directly in the pan. Then I'm going to put it back on the heat and cook it until the yolk is just set. This is looking really good. It's smelling even better. So I'm going to get my plate ready to go. Always important to have your plate ready. My egg is looking fabulous. Just cooking along. This is great for like a Sunday morning breakfast. You know, Gabriel and I do brunch together every Sunday, and we try not to just do pancakes and eggs. So I'll do hash every so often, or I did the baked oatmeal this past week, which was really yummy, and then you can like reheat it. It makes a nice pan of it. Okay, so my hash looks delicious. And my egg, see, it's just starting to set on top. I just wanted a little bit more cooked. But again, having oil in the pan is such an important part of this process, or you'll just have like eggs sticking everywhere. Nobody wants that. So this looks so delicious. Oh, so excited for this. And then I like my egg a little runny, so I'm going to cook your egg to your preference. But this looks perfect for me. And there we go, my sweet potato and apple breakfast hash. So this week we have two different citruses in the marketplace. We have organic grapefruit and organic Meyer lemons. And one of my favorite things to do with citrus is to preserve them in salt. So just call it preserved lemon or preserved citrus. It's very easy to do. All you need is a clean jar with a lid and some salt. So please do make this, because I'm going to be using this in recipes moving forward. It'll just take a week or two for everything to jive and for the preserved lemons to get ready. So you can either cut them into wedges or cut them into slices. I feel like making slices today, but I'm going to make them pretty thick. Preserved lemons are so great. Like, you can use them in salads, you can use them in chutneys, you can use them in stews. It adds a nice salty, acidy vibe to everything. So it's really basic. You don't have to really measure. All you do, I just need a spoon. Basically, you're just going to put like a little bit of salt over everything. So I'm just going to sort of layer in my lemons. Put a nice dose of salt, and again, like, salt will be flavored, so you can use that for yummy, yummy things. And I'm going to do both lemons. So Meyer lemons are a breed between a citron plant and a mandarin orange. So you can see their flesh is slightly orange tinted and has a sweeter flavor. So it's really great for baking, and for sweet applications, you can make a really yummy lemon curd out of them. But I'm just using mine to make preserved lemons, because I love preserved lemons. I used to do a whole citrus preserving class at this time of year. This is actually like citrus season. So it's okay, we're going to sort of press everything down, let the juices out, that's what we want happening. And again, just layering. I would say we're using about 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt. And that's a good thing, the more salt, the more preserved. So I just want to sort of push everything down. Might add a little bit of more salt in there, just to top it off, and then I'm going to put the lid on. So we're going to let that macerate at room temperature for like 3 to 4 days. Then I'm going to put it in the fridge. So more liquid will come out of the lemons and they'll start to preserve. So why we preserve things in salt is because it draws all the water out of that object. So if there's no water for bacteria to live in, then there can't be any bacteria. So, you know, humankind have been using salt to preserve things for a long time. I'm also going to preserve some grapefruit, because I love preserved grapefruit, and I'm actually going to cut wedges. I need to sharpen my knives, everyone. So again, cut them however you want. I just want to do nice, big, beautiful wedges. And I'm going to layer in my salt. And just sort of, wedges are better for the grapefruit because they're such a big fruit compared to the Meyer lemon. Oh my god, these grapefruits are so good. If you haven't had them, please get them next week. They're so delicious and sweet and red. Look at that. That's like a ruby red grapefruit. They're grown in Texas organically. And the best fruit to use for preserving methods like this is organic fruit. If you have something that's been treated with pesticides, it actually won't ferment. It will actually stop the process. In terms of salt, you want to use a kosher salt or a sea salt. Check your salt, like if you're using Morton table salt, it usually has an anti-caking or it's iodized, and iodized salt will not do what we want it to do. So please use a kosher or a sea salt. That's my pantry perk for the week. So we have preserved citrus, grapefruit, and lemons. We also have, I made this earlier for lunch. This is one of the lettuce mixes this week with cut up watermelon, radishes, and goat cheese. Again, you can use any of our beautiful radishes. We have the red rose radish this week that has beautiful pink skin and like pure white flesh on the inside. Let me just show you. How gorgeous is that? So you can actually roast these, and I toss them in a little bit of vinaigrette with some vinegar. So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in this week. I'm Chef Diana, and that's my cook along.